Sorry.
Nope.
So how's the accounting world in Los Angeles these days?
Busy, getting busier.
Excellent. And why so?
One of the reasons is just the perpetual shortage of CPAs.
Okay.
There's a stat out there that something like 60, 70% of licensed CPAs are either at, near, or already past retirement age. And then on the other end of the pipeline, accounting programs have never had such low enrollment year over year.
So young people just have no interest in being accountants.
Apparently, it's not that sexy of a career.
Go figure. I'm shocked. I'm totally shocked by that. No, that's crazy. And how have your holidays been? Not too busy, I hope.
A bit busy,
Yeah.
but with family, so that's always a plus. Right?
Okay, that's good. That's important. Family time is golden. So basically, yeah, I've been connected to you for years. I don't even know how we originally kind of connected in this space. I think it might have been actually through some of the adventures that you've had abroad.
Possibly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I haven't needed an accountant in LA before. So, and you're probably working on way bigger stuff that I would need anyways.
Oh, we work with everyone, every shape, size, and form. We have W-2 employees that are making less than six figures, and people are ultra high net worth and everything in between.
Yeah. Do you ever do any like film or television production work?
A bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a decent amount in the entertainment space, especially a lot of business management for some actors, actresses, and a lot of DJs.
DJs is big business in LA.
It is. I think what's happened is we got a number of clients in that space, and it just got to a point of critical mass that now their managers were the go-to resource. Anytime they have up and coming like EDM artists and stuff that need CPAs.
Wow. So I mean, I like the whole DJ business confuses me from the very start. I mean, how do these people make a lot? I guess they're making music and then also doing events. So it's some kind of differentiation between like royalties on the music they make and then also getting paid out for live events.
Right. Yeah. There's kind of like two kinds of DJs that usually come to mind, right? And this is what I thought of before we got into this space. There's the DJs that people think of that just spin other people's music at clubs, at weddings, what have you. And then there's the DJs that are making the music, right? They're coming up with the new stuff. The ones that just play at events, weddings and whatnot, they're not the DJs that necessarily need business managers and whatnot, right? They don't go on tour.
Right. Yeah, that's the big difference.
Right.
But special thanks and an ode to Adam Sandler and The Wedding Singer, which nowadays would have been like the wedding DJ, right? Because people don't even put together bands anymore.
Yeah, there's no more bands, singers. It's DJs.
Yeah, amazing. So let's take it back a little. So where are you from originally?
All over. I was born in Oklahoma, but that's not where I'm from.
Okay.
I disavow that being my home state because my father was in the Air Force. We lived there for maybe 2 or 3 years. I don't even remember it, so it doesn't count.
It doesn't that part of my life is over. Yeah. So you were 2 or 3 when you left Oklahoma?
Yeah. And then from there, we just bounced around the continental U.S. for, probably until I was up through college years.
Wow.
And then I settled here.
Okay. And where did you end up going to college, if you don't mind me asking?
The first college I went to was Macon State College, a small college in central Georgia.
Okay. And how'd you go from central Georgia to Los Angeles? I mean, was LA always the draw? Like, did you have a secondary purpose of wanting to come here? I mean, as a trained accountant, there's many places you could go and do things, right?
There is. Yeah, it wasn't really on the radar. I just sort of fell into it. After my years in college in Georgia, I moved back up to the DC metropolitan area where I went to high school. Had a job at a forensic accounting firm there. Fast forward, I moved to Colorado with my mom and my sister. And then after a couple of years there, I was just looking for something new. I had one of my oldest friends was living here in LA, working in the mortgage space. And he said, no, just come out here. I mean, you can just hang out, just check out the beach, see what it's like, get a job if you want, or go back.
Yeah.
I figure I'm in between roles, maybe I'll take like a month off, 2 months off, just kind of see what's going on out here. Came out here and ended up becoming home.
Wow. That's great. I always ask because so many people come out here to chase a dream or to be an actor or actress or something like that and then end up waiting tables and then getting caught up in something else, right? So obviously a CPA is a little bit more advanced. It's not easy to fall backwards into a CPA position, as you well know. But But you came out here, with a purpose and with a passion, at least to see a bit of ocean and enjoy the weather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I think the thing that interests me a lot about you is what you've been doing in your pastime for like the last 20 years at least, is running. And where did your passion for running actually begin?
Yeah. So, a little context before I started up my own CPA firm about 6 years ago. Is something I just lived and breathed for years and years, and it's something I fell into. So, I didn't do cross country in high school or anything like that. I was actually at college, and I joined the intramural, the boxing club.
Okay.
And one of the things the coach emphasized is endurance. So, if you can't hit the hardest, okay. If you're not the fastest, it's okay. If you can outlast your opponent, it's game over.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's all you have to do is just outlast the other individual. It's like running, a bear comes into your campground and you have 3 or 4 friends. All you do is outrun them.
Right. And then the bear will be hungry and then not hungry and then sleeping, and then you can walk away easily after you've lost 3 friends. But the real question is, like in boxing, I know that there's an endurance element to it, but it's at the same time you want to last, but you can't be a punching bag at the same time and just be taking hits, especially if you're not a huge guy.
Right. So there's a endurance in terms of like cardiovascular, but also just in terms of resilience. Right. So endurance, it should be able to outlast or be resilient to whatever it is, whether it be taking punches or just time, temporarily speaking.
Right.
So I took that, and he really pushed like cardio, like running and stuff. So okay, fine, I'll go on like a run. I ran like a mile, okay, right, around the campus. And then over the course of like several weeks, I just kept increasing the mileage. And at one point, I was 13 miles or so away from the campus, like half a marathon, and then run back. I'm like, I just did like almost just shy of a marathon. Like, I feel amazing. And it became an addiction, right? Then just became like just kind of chasing that high.
Right. I've heard about chasing that high. No, that's incredible. So what got you into boxing in the first place?
I always found it very interesting. And so I started taking boxing lessons when I was in high school, just more as like a club sport. I was never an amateur or pro or anything like that. It was more just at the kind of the sparring and the club sport level.
So your father was in the military.
Yeah.
And were you like being educated on military bases, or were you getting to go to like normal schools with other non-military kids?
Most of my primary school years is just normal schools. There is 1 year where we went to school on base.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I just have no idea how that works. And I'm from Canada too, and no one talks about being in the Canadian military because it's not really a thing. There's very few of them, I suppose.
I don't think I've heard much about it.
No, it does exist though. It does exist. We have a military that does do things. Interesting. Okay, so because sometimes you see people doing boxing and this kind of like more combative training and stuff like that on military bases, for example. It's kind of like a cliche, right? I didn't know if that's where you kind of maybe picked it up.
Maybe subconsciously, but no, not overly.
Okay, so your boxing coach says, look, you're not the biggest, you're not the toughest, you're not going to hit the hardest, so you got to last the longest, and you just start running and loving it.
Yep.
Yeah. And what is it like, what was it like that first time you did 26 miles?
It was like, oh, okay, I need more kind of thing. Right. And from that point on, I've done actually like dozens, if not like hundreds of obstacle course races, 10Ks, marathons, triathlons, like you name it.
Right. And you mentioned like chasing that high. So like, did you have something in your life that you were missing, or something that you were chasing, or something that you were trying to run away from, which kind of led you into this kind of like running space? Because I've seen a lot of documentaries. I met a lot of people, like some of them had, addiction issues, and then they started running and then they never, drank again, or some of them had issues with their family and started running, and there was a way of like helping them cope with something they were going through, or their mental health or something like that. Like, and for you, did any of those kind of things like resonate, or did you just run?
I just ran, but there's a good possibility maybe it preempted some of that stuff.
Sure.
Right? There's something in just running, get to like that trigger point where there's just like a clarity of mind, and it helped. I mean, gosh, it helped like with my schooling, it helped with my career, helped with really everything, my drive.
Yeah, it is. It's like a meditation almost, right? You just get into that zone and you just go forever, and it's clarity.
It is. Yeah, it's funny. because there's folks like myself that like see it that way and have had that experience, and there's others where they do a half marathon because they agree to do it with their best friend and stuff, and is the worst experience in their life kind of thing.
Right. So it's a hit or miss, right? You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great. So you've loved it over the years.
Yeah.
And it's what provided you a nice balance with your, I'm assuming a very hectic corporate job where you're working late and working weekends and having clients that are really demanding and having that way to kind of balance it out.
Yeah, an outlet for sure.
For sure. Yeah. So did it help your boxing in high school being super fit, or were you just getting pummeled all the time?
Fortunately or unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of pummeling.
Okay.
Again, it was more limited to like some sparrings and some like small organized matches with people that are like equivalent skills. So there wasn't big events or anything like that. And it was always with like the headgear and everything else.
So all very safe.
Yeah.
I've done a bit of sparring and a bit of boxing over the years, especially during COVID, actually, because I was in Dubai, and I was amazed, and I still believe, like minute for minute, calorie for calorie, it's probably the best like 60-minute workout you could have is sparring with a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be pretty intense.
So intense, and a full body workout. It's insane.
Mentally, physically, all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you moved away from boxing in high school. Did you play any other sports?
In middle school, I had football, and then in elementary school, soccer.
Okay. Everyone plays elementary school and soccer.
Yeah.
What is it about America? Like everyone plays soccer and then goes away from it.
Yeah. And then later on, you learn that it's not soccer; it's actually football.
Naturally, yeah. And we have Ted Lasso to help us with that as well. So thank you. Shout out to Apple for getting some education in there. And now we have Lionel Messi, so that's very exciting as well. No, so you kind of gravitated towards running at the end of high school, and so were you doing any like competitions, or was it just still for fun or training for other things?
I think like the distance event stuff, like running, was always just for fun.
Yeah,
it was always just for fun. I do races like 10Ks and half marathons and stuff, but I knew I wasn't going to be first or second place. Some of the smaller ones where there's maybe like 100, a couple hundred people, I've come in first place and got second place before and stuff, but that's few and far between.
Right.
It's more about the personal record, your PR.
Yeah. So you were really just running for yourself.
Exactly, racing myself.
Yeah. And I'm always kind of curious because like I ran track and field in high school as well for a bit before I got on to other things, and always found it very kind of really competitive to the point where I didn't like it. Like I think maybe I understand where you're coming from, where I loved running as well. I had to run for basketball and rugby, which were two other sports I was playing at the time. But actually running and being competitive about it kind of ruined it for me.
Took away something from it.
Yeah. I think I lost the meditative aspect, and then it kind of became competitive, and that's what I didn't want that experience to be. I don't know. Did you ever have a similar kind of feel?
No, but I can imagine if I was in a position where it had to be for competition, that would kind of ruin it a little bit.
Yeah, because then you're not in your own headspace anymore, right? Exactly. You're just like worried about everyone around you and people catching up.
Worrying about my pace and like what else is going on, and
yeah. And did you stick with it all through university as well?
I did. I stuck with it for up until maybe about like 5 years ago, and then kind of tapered off a bit.
Right. As you set up your own firm, as you get busier with life and work and stuff like that. Yeah, it's hard.
Which is also a cliche, right? Because there's what is stopping me from getting up an extra hour earlier and going out and doing a quick 5 or 10K, right? I mean that rhetorically, but
well, living in LA stops you from doing that, doesn't it? I mean, like, because this town is huge, traffic everywhere. I see people like on Santa Monica or Sunset, like running, in the morning, and there's just stopping at stoplights and looking at their phone and then running again. It's like the worst. It's like a miserable start and stop experience.
It is. It's not the same.
Yeah. It's terrible. Like for me, I always enjoyed like running in nature, right? So that's why I always thought like cross country would be fun, because you're running through the woods, you're running off road, you're running on different terrain. And I always thought that would be very interesting. And we started doing this with my rugby coach a long time ago. He would take us out into the mud and we'd be running up like dirt hills, to get our training up. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, and then I found out cross country is also that kind of running. I didn't like track and field. But then, having everyone around you and trying to keep up and everything like that, and then all that kind of competitive spirit kind of ruined it for me towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think running in nature is kind of the best.
Yeah,
Versus like just running circles around a track. Actually, one of the best races I enjoyed the most, right, being in nature, it was over in Catalina Island. They have a 50-mile race, usually I think like January, February each year. And it's beautiful, just like you're running from like one end of the island to the other.
Yeah. Where's Catalina Island? I'm sorry, I'm totally lost here.
No problem. You'll learn as you kind of settle into LA area. It's just off the coast from Long Beach. You hop on a ferry. I think it's maybe like a half-hour ferry over to the island. It's a cute little town too, right? Nice little getaway place.
Amazing. And there's a serious run over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
every year. When and you've done that a few times?
Just once.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was a beautiful race.
Okay, not bad. So how old were you when you did your first marathon?
First marathon, I was probably 20. First formal marathon, I think I was like 26, 27.
Okay. And why did you want to jump in that? Was it peer pressure? Did you have some friends doing it with you, or were you just like, I'm just gonna try to go the full 40 kilometers, the full 8 miles or 6 miles?
26.2 miles.
26.2 miles. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it wasn't any of that. It was just at that point I'd been running, probably for, I don't know, maybe a good like 6 years or so. Just again, kind of spurred by the boxing coach at the time. And I'd be running on my own all the time. I've never done a structured race before. Never did a 10K, never did a half marathon, anything like that. So I figured, okay, my first formal race, I'm going to sign up and pay for. Let's do a marathon. And so I did the San Francisco Marathon up north.
Wow. That was your first one.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be a terrible place to do a marathon because you're just running up and down hills like the whole time.
It was a bit hilly, but again, is a beautiful course.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool running across the bridge.
Oh, so part of it is running across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure a lot of tourists love doing that too, right?
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever use your running as like a way to see America or see any international like locations? Because I know, I haven't interviewed them, but I know this one couple and their like thing is to do marathons together, and they do them like all around the world, and they use it as a reason to travel, or a reason to like go and see a city is like to do the Sydney Marathon or the whatever the equivalent might be, like, and they use that as a way of like
to see different cities and parts of the world.
Was that ever part of your agenda, or was it just to do the running?
At first, it's just do the running, and then actually I used that very excuse. That was what brought me to Morocco a number of years back, as well as like Madrid and a couple other places. So I'd intentionally go somewhere to do a race, and while I was there doing the race, I'd be like, okay, then I'll sightsee a bit too.
Yeah. And how great was it to use your passion and your skill to use that and to kind of see a little bit more of the world?
Oh, is amazing. I'd love to get back into that.
Yeah. So how many marathons have you run in total? Did you keep track? Did you have like a little list on the wall of all your like pennants and all your participation trophies?
So this is where the CPA of me comes out, right?
Yeah.
Us loving spreadsheets and all. I have a spreadsheet that I like track every single race I did, what my completion time was, if I placed, how much I paid for the race, just everything. So of marathons, I think I have like 20 or 30 or so.
Okay.
Half marathons, about 50, 60. And then all the other races, 10Ks, obstacle courses and whatnot, a couple hundred.
Wow. So you're in high school, you're in university, you're a young adult, you're living in California, you're running, you're doing some marathons. What made you get into the obstacle courses, and what was your favorite kind of experiences with that? Because I think one of them's called, I'm drawing a blank. One of them's called like Tough Mudder or something like that, right?
There's Tough Mudder, Spartan Race, Warrior Run. There's a whole bunch of them, but they're all kind of conceptually the same.
Right. And did you go out and do those?
Yeah, I've done a number of those. Yeah.
And what was the draw? Like, did you just like, okay, running a marathon is too easy. I need to like, shimmy under barbed wire and climb up a rope with knots in it and jump over a wall that's too high for me. Like, what was the thinking?
I think the thing is just to mix it up a bit, right? Do something that's not just that's a race, but there's other parts of it than just the running portion.
Sure, yeah. Because I think like for me, I also kind of get bored when I run. So if I'm not out in nature where there's a lot of things that are different around me, I get super bored running. Like maybe I can listen to a podcast or something, but I can't run on a treadmill, for example. So the idea of doing like one of these obstacle course running experiences actually is very attractive to me, because I think like the mixing it up and having to attack these different obstacles in between, the running bits, would be a lot of fun for me. And I think I would love that versus just pure running.
Yeah. It definitely breaks up monotony if that's a concern. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing this in an entire vacuum. Like none of your friends are doing this with you. There's not like 5 guys from the office you're signing up for like the Tough Mudder with, and you're like, oh, I'm going to beat you. And then it's like beers to whoever gets the best time or something like that.
No. So it's entirely different. It's a quiet addiction. Sorry. So case in point, right? I did this race in the Death Valley once as a marathon. And so I woke up, I got up real early, drove there in the middle of the night, slept in the car for a few hours right next to the start of the race, hopped out, did the race, and then drove back home.
Just
on my own.
On your own.
No friends, no family. It's just like, it's almost, in some ways, addiction. I like sit there, like Google sites, there's a runninginusa.com or something like that, and just look for like, what's an interesting race that's not in the area, just to see a different environment.
Right. Well, Death Valley National Park must have been incredible to run through.
It was beautiful. It's not because of the time of year that they had it. It wasn't hot, and that's what a lot of people associate with it.
Right.
But it was a pretty interesting trek.
Right. And what was the? So I'm specifically interested in Death Valley because actually in April I'm going to be doing a traverse across Death Valley. So we're going to do like the full. I think it's about 160 miles. But I won't be running. I'll be just kind of trekking and hiking with some friends. But very interested in the topography and the landscape, and obviously the altitude having it be kind of below sea level. What was your experience like in Death Valley?
It was not what I expected. Again, I think just going with the things that we connote it to be, I thought it'd be just kind of flat, dry, below sea level dirt sort of thing. Yeah. But there's actually a lot of varied terrain.
Yeah. I think that's that kind of salt flat that we all see in the photos.
Right.
That's surrounded by mountains.
Right.
And apparently, like last August during the hurricane that hit Los Angeles, parts of Death Valley got completely flooded because it was below sea level. So everything from the mountains around it kind of flooded into Death Valley, and it destroyed the national park. I'll maybe try to put some pictures online later, but it was incredible to see like how the roads were chewed up by the running water and how the whole park was devastated. And they closed it. I think they maybe just reopened it in November or December.
Yeah, very recent.
Yeah, that's amazing. So have you run anywhere else as exotic as Death Valley?
Right, the most exotic was in the Sahara Desert.
Right. So this is your, because I did some reading that you passed along. So this was your like 150-mile ultra marathon. So this was not just a marathon. This was an ultra marathon.
Right. It's kind of like multiple marathons in a row.
Right. And what would make you think that like that was a good idea?
Because again, it kind of goes back to that like addiction thing. It's kind of like, okay, I did this, and then I do some ultras, like the 50-miler in Catalina. Like, okay, what else is there? What's really challenging?
Yeah.
Right. I always want to like just kind of get outside the comfort zone sort of thing. And I was Googling, and I found this race that they call, the slogan is toughest foot race on earth.
Well, that makes me want to do it right away, right? That's fantastic. It's a great name.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, oh wow, what is this? And I checked it out, and it's a 5-day staged race. Usually it's 5 days, over in the Sahara Desert. And so you're dealing with the heat, you're dealing with the landscape, the terrain, you're dealing with carrying all your own gear. So it's self-sufficient. So you're provided nothing except water at specific checkpoints.
So how do you? Okay, so you fly to Morocco, you get ready to do this Sahara race. Like, what do you have on your back at the beginning of a 150-mile ultra marathon? Like, what do you have to keep you healthy for 5 days?
So it's all kind of like planned out well in advance, and thankfully enough people have done it. You kind of get the best practices of what to bring, what not to bring. So it's bring. You have the clothes that you're wearing, they're on your back. Generally, you wear that the entire time. You have maybe a very, very, very lightweight jacket and lightweight breakaway pants, because at night in the desert, Sahara, it actually gets pretty cold.
Yeah,
Right.
it's freezing. It can drop below zero easily if you're there in the wintertime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so this was in, I think, April when they have this race. So in the daytime, it could peak 130 degrees. And then at night, when you're sleeping on the ground, it could be in the 40s. Right. So it's a huge differential.
Right.
So you have that stuff. You have your food or sustenance for the the entirety of the race. And you kind of like sketch it out of, how much does it weigh? How many calories do you need by day? And just have it all packed up in little Ziplocs and things labeled.
The Ziplocs, are you doing like PB&J? Like you doing peanut butter sandwiches? Or are you eating like space food where you need to like heat water? Do you have like a little like, do you have a little torch and a little like camp set up? Or are you just eating whatever you can?
It's kind of to each their own, right? So you're allowed to bring whatever you want, just understanding you're carrying this on your back while you're running every single day there. So the idea is you want to bring as little as possible to kind of keep the weight down, because with the water alone in your pack, it's going to be, pushing 25, 30 pounds, which is quite a bit running on sand for that long of a distance.
Right. Yeah. Very few people really know how painful it is to run on sand or even walk on sand. I remember I did this trek in northern China. We were in the Taklamakan Desert, going up and down these massive sand dunes. And we were doing somewhere between, I want to say we were doing somewhere between 10 and 15 miles a day. But we didn't have to carry all our own stuff. We had a camel caravan with us, and we had, some, some comforts. We had a cook, and we went on like a proper 12-day adventure. But to do like 10 or 15 miles or 20 to 25 kilometers a day in sand, it's almost like you're adding an extra half of the distance on top of that, just because of the way that you walk in sand. So every time you step, you slide.
Right. You're losing a little bit of that spread. Yeah. Every single step.
Every single step, and it adds up. And I didn't really realize that until afterwards. But like just running in the sand is kind of soul destroying in so many ways, because you're just doing so much more distance and so much more effort than would be required on like hard land.
Right. Yeah. You're putting in, say, 80% effort. You're only getting 30% traction kind of thing. Right.
Right. So a self-sufficient 150-mile journey, you start off with a 20 to 30-pound pack. And then I guess every day you're eating what's in the bag, you're drinking, but refilling along the way. And you finish with just an empty backpack.
Well, you still have all your own gear. So the only thing that's missing in theory is usually just like the food portion, which could be, I don't know, it could be anywhere like 3 to 8 pounds, just depending on what you bring.
Amazing. And there's no one there to like meet you at certain points and like give you some food. But they're just giving you water basically just to sustain yourself.
Just water. And they take it a step further. So you get this little punch card, and it's on your shoulder, strapped to your back. And there's like a different little punch of like how many liters for each different checkpoint, because all the checkpoints are sketched out ahead of time. And if you get to a checkpoint and you're only allowed like say 2 liters, but you're like, oh no, I need 3, you get docked time. And so you lose time on this race if you ask for more water than.
So if you're extra thirsty, you're punished.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense at all. This is torture. Oh my God, that's crazy. My brother's getting into these kind of like ultra marathon things, but he's done a few that are like, I think something like 45, 50 kilometers, which is maybe 30, 35 miles a day, where he does these kind of like around parts of Toronto. He's in Toronto, and he again, he's just addicted to it. He loves it. He loves training for them. And then, on game day, he just gets up for it, but he hasn't done like a 5 day, where you're doing like a marathon a day. It's insane.
Yeah, that's what I hear, but it's addictive.
Yeah. Did you ever see that movie? Did you ever see that movie that they did about the it was like, I think it was funded by water.org, which is like Matt Damon's water charity that he has, and it was about these 3 guys that wanted to like run across the Sahara. And it wasn't an organized race. It was just 3 guys that were kind of brought together to do this. And it's fantastic. I think you'd love it. Like one guy was like, he used to be a drug addict, and then he started running, and it totally like turned his life around and cleaned up his life. And there's like all these images of like him training in like Oregon or something with like a tire on his back, with a rope around his shoulders, and he's just running up a hill in like rural Oregon or something like that. And then, cuts to the Sahara, and these three guys just suffering for weeks on end. As I think they were like running a marathon a day for like 30 days or something like that. Yeah. It was epic. It was pretty solid adventure.
Check that out.
Yeah. Did you get to see anything when you were in Morocco running endlessly, or was it just, were you guys like so isolated in the middle of the desert you didn't even get to see anything?
It was pretty isolated. So what happened is when we got to Morocco, we stayed in a town nicknamed, I think, Oz, but starts with a Q. And we were there for a night or two. They gave us like pre-race instructions and stuff about how things will work. And there's the medical doctors at the checkpoints each night and stuff if you need anything. Then they bust us out to the desert, and then that's it. You're not really by civilization at all. I think the most we saw was, aside from event organizers, right, at checkpoints and volunteers, would be the occasional like group of camels and whatnot.
Sure. The camels are the best, and the camel drivers right out there in the middle of nowhere, just enjoying life. Yeah. And so you head out to Morocco, and at this stage you've never done a longer race than this. So this would be your longest race you've ever attempted.
Yeah, by far.
And there's no nerves in there?
No, it was more excitement.
Really?
Yeah.
Just like, I have no idea what's going to happen, but let's just get this started and see where it takes us.
Yeah. But the first day was probably the hardest. That's where actually nerves kicked in, because the first day we first left the starting line, and maybe like an hour in, and in carrying this heavy pack, which I've never ran with that heavy of a pack before. It's over 120 degrees. Never ran in 120 plus degrees. It's hot. The sand is slippery. I started wondering, like, my God, man, this is tough. I'm gonna do how many more miles? I still have like 140 plus miles. Like, I don't know if I could do it.
Right.
But eventually, you kind of get to a point where I just found that pace, right, and got to that meditative point. Like, okay, I got this.
One time I interviewed this woman in Hong Kong when I used to live in Asia, and she was an ultra marathon runner. She did like 4 or 5 different races a year, all like 150-mile kind of stuff. And she would train. She had all this video of herself training in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is also very kind of hilly. And she has all these videos of her training with like rice sacks in her backpack, to kind of mask the weight that she would have to carry on the way. So you went into a 150-mile ultra, never having trained with any weight on your pack.
A little bit of weight. I had like a small pack, one of those little weighted vests, but that was, I don't know, maybe like 12 pounds, 15 pounds.
Yeah. So you were just excited and ready to go. What were all the personalities around you like? I mean, did you have to deal with like people who were super arrogant, or people who were just afraid, or people who were like crying because of like fear? I'm so, in some ways, beyond just racing. I'm also curious about the atmosphere.
Right. Yeah. The human element is very broad. Is like a sampling of an array of countries and languages and cultures and what have you. I think they said the youngest participant in our group, this is 2017 that I did it, was a teenager. And the oldest was an elderly gentleman that was the grandfather of that teenager. I think she was maybe like 14, 15, something like that, 16, and he was in his 70s.
Wow. So that's something that some kids do with granddad.
Apparently, right. Setting a new standard. Right.
Wow, that's incredibly intense. I like, because the atmosphere around these experiences is always super interesting, because people do things for their own reasons, right? And people go in with so many different levels of expectations. And the only thing that so I haven't done any races before, but I've climbed a lot of high mountains. So the only thing I can compare it to is like being at base camp with like 100 people. And when you're at base camp with like 100 people, everyone has different expectations. If they're going to summit, if they're going to get altitude sickness, if there's going to be an injury, if there's going to be an avalanche, if someone's going to die, and which is totally, the same situation in a ultra marathon. Like, did anyone not make it, or did anyone like actually pass away on the adventure? Because I know that actually happens. Like, some people just don't make it.
Yeah, for this particular race, there's been a number of heart attacks and other fatalities over the years. For my group, 2017, there was no serious injuries or fatalities, but not everyone finished. I think of like the 1,200 or so international participants, something like 900 or 1,000 finished, give or take.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few folks that didn't make the whole thing.
Right. And the race organizers for something like this, like they would keep the race open until the majority of people come through. But I guess there's some people who are just finishing walking, right? And because they want to finish it on their own merit. But do the race organizers eventually just say, okay, we're done. Whoever's out there is like on their own, and people are just walking in like days later. Everyone else is left. I have all these ideas about how this thing works, but I don't know any of it.
Yeah, they'd have like cutoffs for different checkpoints. So it doesn't matter where someone's like sprinting, walking, jogging, whatever. If you don't get in by a certain time for a certain checkpoint, then they just take you off the course, like you're out, kind of thing.
Would they like get in a Jeep and go find you, or would they?
I think so. Yeah, I think they have like wherever the last people are, they have be tailed by event, volunteers and stuff with a vehicle.
Okay, so there is that like
there's that safety
net, right?
Right. You're on your own. We're not going to help you at all unless you're in serious need.
Right. I see that. That's interesting. And was there any kind of understanding of you of like, which people on the course were maybe more successful than others based on, their mentality or their physique? Because I've noticed, a lot of different things over the years climbing of like who does better on the mountain.
Yeah. I'd say it's pretty clear like who some of the pros were, right? Just you see them, you see what they're doing to like warm up and stuff, and they're sprinting the entire thing, which is just insanity.
Yeah.
Right? And impressive too. Right? But most folks, I think it comes down to just that personal challenge. Right? There's folks that it really doesn't matter what their physique was like. There's a gentleman that was blind being escorted by a companion the whole race.
A blind racer.
Completely blind. Not just legally blind, like blind. Right? And he finished.
Because if you're legally blind, you can still drive in most states, right?
Exactly. So you can still get by on your own, but no, he's completely blind. Then there's another gentleman that had amputee.
Oh wow!
Right, one of the legs had, I forget what it's called, on the metal piece, and then somebody else had amputee both arms. Right.
Wow.
For most of the course, it didn't really matter, but there were some courses where they're a little bit scrambling, like going up down hills. They're a little jagged and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but all those individuals finished.
I couldn't imagine how frustrating or difficult it would be running in the desert with an amputated leg. Like, if that amputated leg doesn't fit in a shoe, if you're running like on
one of those
blades or something like that, like that would just get stuck in the sand the whole time.
You would think so, but I don't know if it's just designed differently or angled differently or something like that. But
yeah, one of the things I've recognized over years of climbing is and I love the psychology and the psychiatry of like being at base camp for a couple weeks essentially, because you really are at base camp for a few weeks, and you're again a whole cross section, different languages, people from all walks of life, right? And you always have like these super fit macho guys, they've got their shirts off at base camp. They're getting that afternoon tan, maybe cracking a beer, the abs, just ripped arms, the whole thing. And then you've got a bunch of people who are just kind of like me, just hanging out, up for the adventure, excited to be there. And then in this particular case, we were at Aconcagua, which is in Argentina. It's the highest mountain in the Americas, about 24,000 feet. And there were a group of women who were just kind of keeping to themselves. And it was amazing. We started climbing one day with kind of like a group of about 10, and we had 4 or 5 of these super macho fit guys, and then we had 4 or 5 of the women. And by the summit day, the last day, so we were at Camp 3, which is about 6,000 meters, which is around 22,000 feet. Then we went up, and it was like minus 40 degrees Celsius, which is also minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind was ripping. You're in the dark. You're climbing for like about 12 hours. Not 12 hours, from midnight till maybe 6 a.m. in the dark, and then another 5 or 6 hours to get up to the summit. And all the super ripped macho guys didn't make it. And all the women were just there, just head down, just bang, bang. And we were there because we were filming and we didn't want to give up. So I was like, come on, guys, we need this for the episode. But it was funny, like all these super ripped, like macho guys, didn't really make it. Whereas all these, just kind of women just put their heads down and just crushed it. There's just this totally different mentality with them, even though, they weren't super fit or showing off or anything like that. They were just there to like get it done. The female support was strong amongst that group for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like a reflection of, just the power of just focusing on what you're doing versus focusing on how it looks to others kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think, way too many people are, especially in the era of social media, are way too focused on just how things look for other people instead of actually just fucking finishing what you start.
Right.
Yeah. It's terrifying. So what was it like at the end of day one of an ultra marathon in the Sahara Desert? And what were you telling yourself at the end of that first day?
At the end of the first day, I felt really good because I got past that headspace for a little while there, probably for a few hours.
Right.
Where like, my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. Do I need to cancel? Do I like pull out? Like, so I was really proud. And happy I got past that mental block. Right.
Right. And how far were you into that? How far into your first day were you when that crippling doubt started to like peek its head up and then you had to bat it back down?
Yeah, it wasn't long. It was maybe like an hour or two in.
And you're just done.
Like, I might be done. Like,
it's amazing. Like, cause I guess, we all talk about like finding your legs, right? Like finding that rhythm, finding that pain threshold, which then becomes like normal or comfortable. And it does take like a good hour or two before you find it, and then your legs just kind of go to jelly, and then you're able to just keep moving. Yeah.
Right. And it goes with like, I think with everything. And it's something I teach as a professor on the side. I have several employees, is just be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. How important is that for life?
For everything.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you realize that you could be comfortable being uncomfortable, then it really doesn't matter whether you be in Sahara Desert, studying for a final exam, whatever it is you're dealing with.
Yeah. So I made this TV show called Extreme Treks where we would do these treks all around the world, and people would always tell me like, oh, what you do is so dangerous. And I was like, no, it's just really an exercise in being comfortable in moments of discomfort, which just happened to last 10 to 14 days out in the wild. And it was just, not showering, not eating like you would, sleeping in a tent, sleeping in the sand, whatever needs to be done. And it's just that desire to be uncomfortable in order to kind of push through and find something fresh inside yourself.
And that's where growth really happens.
Yeah. And how's that played out in your whole life? I mean, it seems like running has been a conduit for everything you've achieved.
Absolutely. It's been instrumental in how I approach business, family, schooling, everything.
Yeah. Just anytime you wake up and you're having a bad morning, it's just like, it's not as bad as Morocco. It's not as bad as Morocco. Did you ever get into a point like doing that ultra where you were just like running in someone else's footsteps ahead of you, where you were just like, okay, if this person ahead of me, man or woman, is running at this pace, doing this, like I can kind of stay with them? Because I'm assuming, there's a huge barrage of people at the beginning, and then once you're into day one, day two, everyone gets stretched out in it, and you must have some pretty open spaces where you might even be running and chatting with someone, or you might be making a friend along the way.
Yeah. Eventually kind of like found, maybe similarly skilled individuals that you kind of pace with naturally.
Yeah. And you just strike up conversations with them, or you guys are just too tired and just running and just staying close to each other, I guess, even out of safety, right?
Yeah. I think I'm actually remarkably antisocial with running.
Okay.
And maybe it's one of the things that's driven me towards it is I just like get in my own headspace, and that's where I thrive.
So just no chatting at all, just head down and just pumping away.
Yeah. I'll definitely chat with people there, strike up conversation, but I wouldn't seek it out.
Okay. And what's going on in your brain, like when you're in the middle of like a 30-mile day, or are you so zen that there's just nothing there?
No, it's actually kind of almost like the opposite. It's like everything is happening. Right? When I get to that clarity of mind point, that's where I, for example, when I was in college, I was running, I'd actually write my papers in my head while I'm doing 10, 15 mile run. Like that's where like all the free thought just happens, whether it be thoughts on business ideas, where it's be thought about how to approach a client project, where it's be thoughts about a school paper, whatever it is. Like everything just seemed to like work itself out mentally when I was running.
That's incredible. Yeah. I feel a lot the same way about spending time in nature. Again, like when I was running out in nature or doing some of these treks as well, like just being disconnected, from the rest of the world, not checking your phone every 5 minutes, not checking your email every 5 minutes, and then being kind of out in the wild or in a different headspace. It really does free you up to have ideas and conversations with yourself that you wouldn't necessarily have or have the time to have if you were just in the real world every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty intense. And what did you feel like when you finished the race, the Sahara?
Accomplished.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful moment. Right.
Did you just feel bulletproof and invincible? Like, holy shit, I just did 150 miles through like the world's largest desert.
Yeah. It reaffirmed that sense of like, we are capable, not just for myself, but like realistically, and then hearing stories like some of these other folks that we, like the documentary you mentioned, that we really can do just about anything.
Like physically as human beings on this planet.
Physically, emotionally, it's in us. I mean, granted, there are some innate limitations that folks have or, financial reasons or whatever, but when you really break it down, we could do just about anything.
Yeah. Except get along and agree on anything.
And agree and realize that we could do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, it's funny just how, like, little people listen to each other anymore. And I feel like if everyone just ran marathons and had a little, like, if it had, like, 3 to 5 hours once in a while of just pure isolation and pure self-reflection and pure grit, and, of course, the physical demands on as well, I think, like, we'd all just treat each other nicer. I don't know if that makes sense, but if everyone was, like, going through and having that similar kind of meditation, that similar kind of clarity, I feel like we'd all just be a little nicer because we would all understand a little bit about like how we're all getting through what we're getting through, if that makes sense.
It does, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that like we have that within ourselves to get by, right? Whatever this challenge is.
Yeah.
Summiting mountain, running a marathon, whatever it is.
Yeah. Have you ever converted your desire and your passion for running into climbing or doing intense mountain treks?
Actually, I did as a result of that race in the desert. So one of my little camp mates, right? So they had us grouped in groups of 6.
See, you did make friends along the way. You're totally lying. Okay, you had a group of 6.
Yeah,
you guys were together.
Yeah. So each night at the checkpoint, there's designated little camp spots, right? And they had you in groups of 6 by country, right? So, 6 U.S., 6 Americans.
Oh, you had to camp with other Americans?
Yes.
That's the worst. This is your one chance to like meet people from other cultures, and they stack you with 5 other Americans.
Yeah, they weren't very progressive in that sense. They had us all sticking with our own countries. Yeah. But anyways, one of my campmates or whatever, his name is Gavin. He actually owned a group adventure thing that like would take groups on summits.
Oh wow!
Right. So after meeting him there and learning about what he did, he reached out to everyone in the group and some others that he's put together a trek for Kilimanjaro. And I've never done any sort of mountaineering type stuff before. So I said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So that following year I did Kilimanjaro.
Oh, fantastic. Which season did you go?
It was in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Kilimanjaro is, I always tell anyone, like, if you ever want to climb big mountains, Kilimanjaro is the best one to start with because it's basically a walk up. There's only one bit that's like even mildly tricky, like a scramble. That's the Barranco Wall. Yeah. And even then, that's not too big a deal.
Very manageable.
Very manageable. Did you go and you went with his group, Gavin's group?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the experience like?
Amazing. Yeah. I think the highlight of that was getting up super early in the morning, like 2 a.m. wherever for that last push to summit.
Yeah.
And hitting the summit or the walk up to the summit, right? You still had like a little half-hour walk to go right when the sun was coming up. It was amazing.
Yeah, because there's the 2 peaks, right? There's that straight up wall of just sand and dust, which is really hard to get through, but not for someone who's done an ultra through the Sahara. But yeah, it's tough. And then you get up to the top, you take a break, and then you have to go to the actual peak, right? Which is like another half-hour, depending on how you're feeling.
Yep.
Yeah. I love Kili. It's amazing. It's such a great climb, and I would definitely like to go back and do it again. And get into it. But that was definitely where I started. And then another good one was very close to probably where you were in the Sahara near Marrakesh is Mount Toubkal, which is the highest mountain in North Africa. It sits at about 4,500 meters, which is maybe like 18,000 feet.
Okay, so pretty close to Kili.
Yeah, pretty close to Kili, but a very different climb. And if you go in the winter, there's snow elements. You need crampons and ice axes and stuff like that. If you go in the summer, it's a walk up, but that's also a great one. Africa's a gem of adventure travel.
Yes.
Yeah. So you finish your first ultramarathon in Morocco. It leads you back to Africa to do Kili. Where did Kili lead you?
Then Kili led me to just back to things here in the States.
Yeah.
I think sometime that following year, so this would be 2019, I did a ultra race through the Grand Canyon. Or as a rim to rim thing. I think it's about 40 something miles.
And that's got to be straight down and then straight up. And how is that? So it's a rim to rim marathon?
But it's ultras because it's like 40 some odd miles. I forget the exact distance.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty much you go kind of straight down, run across the valley, right, the bottom of the canyon, then straight back up on the other side, and then come back down, run across, and come back where you came.
That sounds ridiculous. How long did that take you?
This is a full day.
Oh, wow.
It's a full day.
That's insane. Yeah. And then what after the Grand Canyon? What other beautiful part of the world did you go to torture yourself?
Yeah, and then after that, then my daughter was born.
Oh.
And then my business was picking up, and so it's pretty much been the business and my kids and wife.
Yeah. That's always interesting, kind of like where the adventure starts to end, right? And where just living life like picks up again.
Right, a new adventure begins. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you miss the long runs and the time out in the middle of nowhere and the time to yourself, or have you kind of moved past that and embraced other life's great feelings and moments?
A bit of both, right? And I do want to get back into it. I started sign up for 5Ks, 10Ks with my kids, and I just put them in the double stroller and push them.
Yeah. And
I'm hoping as they get a little bit older that I could incline them to maybe do some events with me.
So in 30 years, you're going to be one of those 70-year-old dudes with the grandkids running next to you in the middle of the Sahara, being like, "I did this, 50 years ago," or something like that.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, it's a good goal. It's exciting. Yeah. It's exciting. And what's, before you were married, before you started your own business and things like that, like how many of these runs were you doing a year? Like, was it like, were you doing like one a month? Were you doing more than one a month? Obviously the ultra marathons, you probably can't do more than a few of those a year at best, but maybe just some of the other local runs around California, they're pretty frequent. I mean, I see advertisements for them
all the time. I'd try to do at least one a weekend. Sometimes if I timed it right, depending on the location, I'd do like one on Saturday, then a different one on Sunday.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
Yeah.
And how'd you find the time and the energy for all of that?
Just, again, it's just that being hooked on it, right?
So, I mean, like most people go out with their friends on the weekends. Most people go out for a few drinks. Most people are, hanging out, going to barbecues or socially engaging, and you're just like, no, I'm going to run.
Yep. Yeah. I'd be like, ooh, okay, if I go to bed early enough Friday, I could wake up and drive over to a race Saturday morning. And then it's only 10K. So then the next day I could do this half marathon, which is in a different part of town.
Yeah. Just, you were purely addicted.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be addicted to something so healthy?
I think that's the key, right? If we just find addictions that are healthy and then just let them run our lives.
Yeah. No, it's true. So like you, I was completely addicted to trekking and climbing and adventure. And I had this whole kind of ecosystem around me set up just so I could do that. So for example, we did, at the peak of our efficiency. And of course, for people who are out there who don't know, like logistics is 9/10 of the law when it comes to adventures. Like your physical fitness has to be there, mental toughness, yes, but after that, it's all logistics. So, for us to do at our peak in 2019, we did 10 expeditions in 10 months in 10 countries, and each expedition was 10 to 14 days.
Wow.
And that was really rocking and rolling.
That logistical planning is impressive.
Yeah. And we had all the camera equipment, and I had my camera guys. Like we filmed in the Philippines, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Mongolia, Taiwan, Thailand, India, and Hong Kong. And we did all of that basically back to back to back. And that was like one season, and that was like 1 year, and that was right before COVID. Yeah. But absolutely epic. And then COVID kind of shut us down. And then, involved in a few other things, and then now slowly relocating back here to the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything on the docket now?
Well, I've got, so I had a very interesting television career where I was kind of doing a lot of corporate work, corporate content creation, stuff that was kind of sponsored by tourism bureaus. I did a lot of speaking events. I mean, in 2019, I think I did 40 speaking events or so. So in between all those treks, I did about 40 speaking events, and some were at universities and some were for Fortune 500 companies, like annual retreats, senior managers, blah, blah, blah. I was in Vegas a lot, doing some events. So I was able to self-fund a lot of these adventures and then make the television shows and then sell them after the fact. And that was kind of how my career got started, making television back in like 2010. And basically because no one wanted to work with me way back in the day. So then I had to figure out how to make the money to do the adventures where I could like control the narrative. So like the thing that I always really wanted to do was I never wanted to make anything that made people dumber. Like I hate reality TV.
Yeah, there's enough of that kind of stuff out there.
There's so much of that out there. So I always wanted to I just wanted to educate people. I wanted people to get to see me in a place that they've never been, engaging with local people, learning about the history, learning about the culture. So because of that, my content and the shows that I made kind of gravitated to the BBC, which is very popular internationally and not so much here in the US. But they provided me a great platform for like a decade of making, incredible shows of kind of educating people and avoiding that American reality kind of stuff.
Reality that's actually reality.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you watch a lot of TV, but there was this famous Canadian, he's still alive, he's amazing. His name's Les Stroud. And he was on Discovery. He still is on Discovery Channel, but he's doing a lot of other shows. But he had this one show about 15 years ago called Survivor Man. And he would go out into the middle of nowhere by himself with a camera, no crew. And he'd do like 3 or 4 nights sleeping in the wild, eating from whatever he found. And then he really laid the groundwork for like reality TV. Like he kind of was the first. And then Bear Grylls picked up on what he was doing, and then he kind of commodified it in a very unique way where it was like teaching people how to survive, whereas Les was just surviving and not trying to teach people. He was just kind of out there.
Just living the moment.
Right, yeah. which is incredible. And then Bear got into this, like, I'm going to teach you what to do in this moment, right? And then obviously it's just kind of expanded from that. And I tried to take this kind of educational approach, but we were absolutely crushing it in 2019 before we all got shut down. Where were you in March 2020?
March 2020. Let's see. You're here. Actually, I think we were living in Burbank at the time, and dealing with the shutdown, dealing with like, okay, well, how's this going to work for the business?
Right.
Because now I have all my staff are working from home. That presented its own challenges.
Yeah. I mean, obviously with accounting and other like professions like this, I guess working from home and, using tools like Skype and Zoom and things like that were quite manageable. Like kind of business did continue to tick over, and you guys were able to keep the lights on.
It did. Right. Yeah. We were fortunate. We navigated it pretty well.
Yeah. But
the whole like Zooms, video conference stuff, it will never replace.
It's replaced everything now. Yeah. Yeah, like you have no idea how hard it is to get people to come here to chat with me face to face, because they all like, oh yeah, we can do it by Zoom. And I'm like, no, you can't do it by Zoom. You got to look the other person in the eye. You got to feel the energy. You got to have some emotion in it, right?
It's a very different experience. If this is over Zoom, I would be bored with myself.
Yeah. We both probably would not be wearing pants. and there would be cats and dogs in the whole thing. And
the audience wouldn't be aware, but I'd be very aware that I'd be pantsless.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's good that you guys kind of made it through. I was speaking with, obviously because of my experience in kind of entertainment stuff like that, I've ended up having a lot of podcasts and chats with people who were in entertainment and dealing with the challenges of COVID and the lockdowns, and then of course now recently the strike and things like that. So it's just been a topsy-turvy 4 years for anyone that's been a storyteller of any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, one thing after another. Right when we come out of the pandemic, and then these shutdowns, strikes. Yeah.
What's going to be the Black Swan event of 2024? That's what we're all waiting for. But I don't know if you recognize. I don't know if you ever saw in any of my posts, but in March 2020, I was actually in Ethiopia, trekking and filming in the Simien Mountains in northern Ethiopia when the world closed.
So how did that impact that expedition?
So I can give you the whole story. Like we started, so obviously in December 2019, I was filming in Hong Kong, and there were murmurings of like things going on in China, people with fevers, stuff like that. But I was living in Dubai at the time. So then I went back to Dubai, and I was supposed to have all this stuff lined up in Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia has been opening up, and they've obviously recently they've been buying football players and stuff like that. But they were also wanted to bring in a lot of tourists, and I've always been someone who wants to see everything for myself, right? So if I'm gonna go to Saudi Arabia, I want to go and film, and I want to talk to normal people and have conversations and break bread and talk about the hard topics. I don't want to just like sit outside of Saudi Arabia and listen to some other talking head do it. Like I wanted to be that person. So I lined up a bunch of big projects in Saudi Arabia where I was going to get to like really understand the country, and then of course COVID hit and all of them fell through, and then so because all of them fell through, I was sitting in Dubai and I was looking into Africa being like, well, no country in Africa is going to close their borders. Like it's open. Everyone's traveling and open for commerce. And you see people on Instagram, in Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa, Namibia, it's open, right? So I just thought, I'll just go to Ethiopia and film an episode 2 weeks. And I can use that time wisely and then just come back to Dubai. But then in March, it was March 19th, 2020 when the world closed, and then we had to cut our production. So we were up on the top of a mountain. We were offline for 2 days, got up to the top of a mountain, and our phones went mental because we finally had mobile signal. We were in the valleys before that and we didn't have a good signal. And then we got up to the top and then the world just closed. And we were like, oh man, this is it. Like we've been expecting this kind of off and on for like the last 2 months, and now it's like really happening. So we called a driver to meet us at a GPS point, which was like an 8-hour hike away. So we just double teamed it, hiked, straight out to where the car picked us up. And then it was about a 17-hour drive back to Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia. And the whole time we were driving back, we just kept checking our phones. And it was just like, that country's closed, that country's closed, that country's closed. And my director of photography, Chad, he was actually living in Bali. He's a Canadian as well, but we were so busy filming for so many years that he just lived in Bali in between the filming because he loved it and he was surfing and he loved the ocean and stuff like that. And then Indonesia closed, so he couldn't even go back to Bali because they were only letting Indonesian passport holders back to Bali, not even residents. So he ended up having to go back to Canada because he's a Canadian passport holder. And then I was going to go back to Canada with him, but then I decided at the last minute to go to Turkey because Turkey was the last country to close. So I landed in Istanbul at like 7 a.m. on March 21st, and then the same day, 5 p.m., Turkey closed their international borders, and I was stuck in Istanbul for four months. Yeah, so 4 months of doing nothing but Istanbul is a lovely city, obviously, but 4 months of kind of doing nothing was a bit rough.
Especially after all the trekking.
Right? Yeah. Just that impending sense of boredom.
Right.
I think I probably walked like 10 miles a day just around Istanbul in circles, just trying to keep mentally positive about it all.
And satiate your body's need. And you established in 2019 with 10 tracks.
Yeah, exactly. Did you use COVID as a way to get any like running in, or were you just too busy with your family and with work?
I was too busy, migrating the business to being a hybrid or, a Zoom culture. And then actually my wife at the time, pregnant with our second child, who came October 2020.
Okay. So you got a COVID baby out of it too.
Yep.
That's good. It's amazing. It's amazing the amount of people who have who started businesses or had COVID babies during it as a way of just, yeah, this is what happens when everyone's at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. So you said you're starting to get back into the running. You're starting to do some 5Ks. You're starting to do some 10Ks. What's the plan moving, over the next, year or two? Where do you see this? I don't want to call it a hobby, because I think that depreciates the value it has to you. I mean, it's more than a hobby.
Yeah, I think I'd like it to be especially as the kids are getting a little older. My daughter's 5 next month. My son is 3.
Yeah.
So my daughter starts kindergarten next year. So we're kind of past the baby phase, thankfully. And I think with them having a little more structure in school, and my wife's then cut back on work a little bit, work part-time, so full-time as a nurse.
Oh, that's a crazy job too. Like the hours and the stress and just dealing with people all the time. Was she also a nurse during COVID?
She was, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a bit of a nutty time. Just given all the kind of scares. Like, I remember we had this sister. She'd come home from the hospital, and she had to keep her in the garage, and she had to change her clothes in there. And I'm sitting taking like disinfectant wipes and wiping down like the steering wheel of the car, her phone, wiping it down. Yeah, we had our own little like protocol. Just try to keep it out of the house.
Yeah,
because her daughter was really young.
Yeah, how terrifying a time was that? Like, especially in the early days, where like no one really knew, and then later on, we were like, oh yeah, everyone has COVID, and it's not everyone. Not if you don't have an underlying condition, it's probably not so bad. Yeah, but those like first like 2 or 3 months were terrifying.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and yeah, because I guess if you weren't running your own business, you were probably just trying to get out of the house and try to get fresh air as much as possible. The amount of people I know who like started running or started hiking out in nature or started like going to national parks and stuff like that just because of COVID is huge.
Right.
Yeah.
It helped spurred new interest for a lot of folks, which is a good thing.
Yeah. And I think, more time outside is the best, right? And of course, all the gyms were closed and things like that. So this was a great way to do it. Have you ever had a dream of like, running a marathon in every national park in the United States or something else where you can, use this passion of yours to explore more of the U.S. and more of the U.S.'s most incredible landscapes? I'm only thinking because you mentioned the Death Valley thing.
Yeah, I have thought of that. Like for example, do a marathon in every state, do a marathon in all the major cities. Yeah. And I would still like to do that and make a loop my kids into it.
And do you see yourself running and being, in this space, into the later years of your life, assuming you can stay healthy and stay fit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like our bodies are almost like the opposite of like a vehicle, right? A vehicle, the more you use it, the more it's going to break down, the more maintenance is required. Whereas us, like the more we use our body, mindfully, of course, right, the better condition it's in.
Really? You got to walk me through this. How have you come to this kind of conclusion over time?
Yeah. Well, just for example, I used to have knee pain, and when I got into running, it stopped. I even had orthoscopic surgery in high school on my right knee, and then as soon as I kind of got into running, like just no issues, no more sprained ankles, no more knee pain.
Really, it was like the medicine that you needed just to run, to strengthen the whole body.
I think so. Just kind of like working the muscles, lubricating joints, the things that just organically happen when we're active.
Yeah. And of course the mental discipline it takes to get up and get out and run every day. And then of course the meditation aspect and the, fresh thoughts, fresh ideas, time to yourself. It's all just seems so positive.
It is.
Yeah. Did you ever play any organized sports beyond, I mean, boxing's quite isolating and so is running, but you never kind of gravitated towards any other sports where you happen to have to be in good shape and have good cardiovascular capacity?
No, not really. I mean, other than like middle school, the soccer thing, football and stuff, but I always kind of gravitated more towards like the slow sports.
Yeah. Does it ever intimidate anyone you work with or any of your clients when you tell them about how you did this ultra marathon in the Sahara Desert and you just crushed it and people were dying all around you and you just kept going?
I sometimes get looks like, hey, you've done what?
Yeah.
Okay, you're strange. Right?
Yeah. But it's a great talking point, especially I always find like people who have like white collar professional careers, lawyers, accountants, doctors, people in this kind of field, like it's the ones that are by far the most interesting people are the ones that have these hobbies, these quirks, these passions that take them kind of in places that you wouldn't expect them to go, otherwise, because you have to, because of the statistic you gave me earlier about how there's almost no accountants left, and how no one's enrolling in school to be an accountant. The few that are left, they have to be they have to have some interesting hobbies. They have to have something in them that kind of sets them apart from the rest. And you've got your, running and ultra marathons. It sounds, it's something that's quite enticing.
It is. And it's actually been great for business, right? Because it gives a topic, talking point, a differentiator, because how many folks have a CPA that does this kind of stuff?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, have you ever given talks about the running and the passion behind it, or the thought process behind it? Like, have you ever shared what's, your desires to run beyond just whatever, a chat like this?
Occasionally with like staff, with the students at college programs.
Yeah.
Or occasionally it's like a anecdotal little side comment when I'm presenting at seminars or conferences.
Yeah. I think it's, I always think it's so valuable for anyone who's chasing a career aggressively to always have like something on the side that they're doing that's, athletic, that's getting them outside, that's keeping them in good shape and stuff like that. Because I feel like you can get way too caught up in work, and especially now with kids, like the way they're so much into video games and stuff like that, and not being outside, not exercising and things like that, it can be quite destructive, I think. So, this idea of getting out and running just seems like such a thing that anyone can do.
Yeah, it's something, exactly, because you're not racing against anyone, just yourself, right? So if you're doing a fast walk, so what? That's great. The fact is that you're doing it, which already puts you ahead of most people.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like that what do they say? It's like that first step, right? Is you've already won if you've taken that first step on a 10-mile run or a 5-mile run. Like if you've taken that first step, you're already a winner, because you got out of bed, you put on the shoes, you wrestled with your own brain. Half of your brain's telling you, yeah, you do it tomorrow. Half of your brain is like, no, I need to do this now. And then by the time you've taken that first step, you've already won against yourself.
Yeah. And the only difference between walking to the car and riding 500 miles is the number of steps.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. I think that one of the things that you said earlier was very interesting to me is about kind of breaking through that pain anxiety that hit you after like 1 or 2 hours on day one, where you just kind of had to push through it before you kind of got into that meditative zone where you weren't even thinking about your body anymore and you were just kind of running along. Like, how long did it take you to really figure out that is what happens? Because I think a lot of people don't run, or a lot of people don't exercise very aggressively because they're afraid, or they don't know how to handle when their body or their mind starts to push back, right? Like when you start to hit the wall, when you start to hit that limit, when you feel like you want to throw up or something, and how did you kind of train yourself to be able to break through that?
I think that I've always been, very, approach things with a lot of grit. I realize like once you get past that wall, right? Once you've gotten past it a few times, realize, okay, all right, now I know I could accomplish this. And you realize that your threshold for whatever it is just increased. So knowing that you could get through it and what the feeling is after you get past that wall and how you feel, it's kind of be like the motivator to get past those points.
Sure. And I mean, did that come from your parents, like teaching you, like, not to give up or to approach everything with grit? Like, where did that kind of come from, or did you just stumble onto it? I mean, did your boxing coach, instill this in you?
I think it's something I just kind of stumbled upon.
So you just had this like fantastic innate quality to never give up and to fight until the very end all the time.
Well, maybe at first, yeah. But I think after doing it enough times, especially like I go on a run, like, oh, that's not so bad. Then increase the mileage and come to the realization, like, oh, that's what it is. I get past the wall, I get past this threshold. That's what it feels like on the other side. Okay, and then you just continually do that.
Right. So you don't have any kind of app on your phone that tracks your miles that you're doing a week. You're not competing against other people in the office. You're not involved in any of the social elements or the social media elements that are designed to try to get more people into an active lifestyle. You're just doing it for yourself.
Yes.
I love that. It's so enriching to hear you say that, but it's also so self-isolating.
It is.
Yeah. It's and you know, like, you seem like a very personable person. Like, you know, you don't seem like you're hiding from the world. You're not a hermit living in a cabin writing the next great American novel. Like, you live in LA, you're busy, you know, you've got staff, you've got people who depend on you for work and all this kind of stuff. Like, you clearly like being part of society, but you definitely have this streak or this element of you where it's just like, leave me alone, I'm running.
Yes.
Oh no, it's good. I love it. Yeah, I think it's so good. You have to have something like that where it's just like, you just have to be able to tell everyone else to just leave you alone for 2 hours or a whole day.
We should have balance, right? We should have time where it's just ourselves, to get to know ourselves, where boundaries are, where our limits are.
Yeah.
Right. In the same way, it's great to have, close relationships. So it'd be family, close friends, have those social connections. It should be a little bit of both.
Right. But have that balance in there as well, where you can find yourself and give yourself some time to think.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, do you like running on a treadmill? Like, I've always been, again, I've never been able to like run on a treadmill. I like running outside. I like being outside. I like fresh air. Running on a treadmill to me is death. So how do you train, for a 20-mile or a marathon across like Death Valley?
I despise treadmills as well. I'll use them. Just because of the convenience factor, especially at the gym, or if the weather is not cooperating, kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
But I always preferred, especially training, I usually like doing like destination stuff. I give myself a place to go, not just run around the block X number of times. Right? So for example, when I was living in Culver City training for the Sahara Desert race, I'd run from my apartment at the time to Santa Monica Pier and then back, because it was almost exactly a half marathon. It was like 0.1 miles over a half marathon. So it was a perfect distance and gave me somewhere to go. And then, okay, now I'm here. Now I need to get back home.
Yeah. No, that's good. And did you ever, get in the car, drive, an hour or two out of LA to feel a different landscape or to feel a different kind of energy in the run or something like that, like where you're seeing something fresh?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have any hidden secrets out there for anyone who's a runner about how to get out of LA?
There's actually a lot more trails than folks would expect.
Yeah.
Just look them up.
Yeah.
Right? There's tons of sites that'll tell you where. Yeah.
I gotta ping you for that, because I'm definitely looking for like a weekend trek. Like when I was in Dubai, I had this great group of guys, a little more social than you perhaps on my side, but I had about 3 or 4 guys that I would go hiking out in the desert with. Every Saturday morning we get up at like 5 a.m., get a car, go out, do this beautiful mountain trek through the thing. And I'm trying to find like a similar venue here in the LA area where I can get out and, feel some hills, feel some fresh air, get out, watch the sunrise from the top of something. Still trying to find the best place though.
Yeah. There's some spots over in like Malibu Canyon area. There's a lot of trails out that way.
Yeah.
When I was living in Newbury Park, this is maybe like a decade ago, I found a trail that left from my apartment all the way down to the beach. Right, like just run through some canyons and like random trails and stuff, and like it spit you out like right next to the beach. I always thought that was actually kind of a cool little trek. I sorted out, but there's tons of those.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm fresh. I think I've only been around for like 2 months now, so I'm still beyond just setting up the studio and meeting some interesting people. Haven't really figured out all the trails yet, but finishing at the beach would be spectacular. You just go for a swim and then you head home. There you go. Yeah. That's great. So is there anything on the agenda for 2024, work or running wise? Like, is there anything that you're setting out to try to accomplish, or are you just taking it day by day?
I'd say day by day. A big ticket item though is as of January 1st this year, I sold part of my main business.
Okay.
I merged into a larger CPA firm, with the idea that it's actually going to free me up a lot on like the admin stuff that's bogged me down over the years. So I have more time with the family and more time to focus on like clients and relationships and.
Right. So you're slowly starting to like take the steps needed to free yourself up for those weekend runs or those morning runs to get that feeling back again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you miss it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss that feeling.
And have you overcompensated with other things to fill that void? Like, because I know, going from doing 10 expeditions a year to doing none was devastating, emotionally, physically, mentally. Whether it was maybe drinking too much, socializing too much, bad decision making, whatever. Like all of a sudden I had too much time and too much energy for everything, right? And it was terrible. Before that, I was tired all the time, and I was sleeping in a tent, and 40 something speaking events. I was devastated all the time, but
life made more sense in some ways.
Completely more sense, right? Because I knew exactly where I had to be. I had a crew. We were making shows. Yeah, life had a much more clearer purpose. But I definitely tried to find ways of filling and compensating for that loss, and none of them even came close to being as satisfying.
Completely agreed.
Yeah.
I think I've picked up way too many extra hours in the night and stuff, working on things related to work that it kind of fills the gap a bit, but it's not the same.
No, not even close. Yeah, no. So we feel each other there. So how many months or years away do you think you might be from attempting another ultramarathon, for example?
Maybe as early as next year.
And what would you have to do training-wise or competition-wise to get to that point where you would feel comfortable going out and trying to do another 150-mile, trek through a desert?
Probably a year and a half.
Yeah. So a year and a half of consistent running, would you want to do like 3 or 4 marathons, like in a build up to something like that, or just running on your own, knowing that you're strong enough to get there again?
Yeah, I think just running on my own, but like doing some structured events as well just kind of helps.
Yeah. What's the benefit of doing a structured event versus just running on your own? Like, how does that kind of mentally prepare you for an ultra?
Well, for one, like then I know the distance is exactly what it is, because I don't use an app on my phone, track mileage or whatever. Sometimes I just like approximate where I'm gonna go.
You're the total opposite of everyone these days. Everyone has an app. Everyone has a watch that's tracking every single thing they're doing. Do you even wear a watch? You just go out?
Never. I'm not a watch person at all. I don't like them on my wrist. Yeah.
Oh my God. So you're just purely running for the sake of running. Yeah. You don't have any idea how your heart rate's doing. You're not wearing one of those heart.
I don't want to know. I know I feel good. Like it's doing well.
Yeah. That's amazing. And yeah, hopefully you'll be getting back to that good feeling soon that you had. I can't even imagine how euphoric, exhausted, and delirious you must have been after doing an ultra marathon in Morocco.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it. It's right. A blend of all those things.
Yeah. How long did it take you to pull yourself together after something like that? Was it like a couple hours? Was it a couple days? Was it like weeks of just like being in a daze because you were dehydrated, needed food, needed recovery time?
It's actually probably like a day or two later.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things, like for anyone that's looking for a way to like a reason to cheat on a diet kind of thing, is after that race, I think then I flew to London to work for a week or whatever. I ate anything and everything I wanted with zero guilt.
Yeah. I think, yeah, if you're going to be a marathon runner or ultra marathon runner, I think that totally frees up your diet for life.
Yeah.
What have you implemented into your life since you haven't been able to run as much? I mean, are you doing any other physical activity to kind of compensate, or you just been fully working?
No, I'll work out at a gym, just regular workouts, workout classes, occasional yoga, jogs here and there. Yeah, definitely not at the same caliber I was when I was training for that Morocco race.
Sure. I mean, and what's it like standing in a gym surrounded by all these urban dwellers, knowing that you've run 150 miles not across a desert, like nothing to shame any of the people at Equinox or wherever other gyms are. Can't even remember any of the other names, but you're just standing there like working out with all these people, and none of them know what it's like to run 150 miles across a desert.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that maybe a couple, but yeah, but vast majority, it's more about, I think, like the optics of like how they think they look to the outside world versus doing something for themselves.
Sure. And how do you think that confidence of being able to like train for something like that and then do it How do you think that confidence has helped you in like your business life? I mean, when you know that you can just put your head down and go and you're going to be okay, like how did that drastically change every single, interaction you have in your life?
It reaffirmed what I already believed to be true, right? Is that
Oh, so you're already quite confident.
I already knew that whatever I put my head to, like, we'll do it. Because whatever you got to get done, it will get done.
Yeah.
Right. And it just reaffirmed it even more so.
Yeah. I've had a problem. I want to bounce this off you. I'm going to go deep on my own psyche here. I've had a problem over the last few years specifically of working with other people, and people just not doing what they said they were going to do. So I've got a few other businesses and some things I've been working on, and people just like don't get shit done. And it makes me furious because when I say I'm going to get something done, I get it done. When I say I'm going to climb a mountain, I climb a mountain. When I say I'm going to walk across a desert, I walk across the desert. When you say you're going to do an ultra, you do an ultra, right? How frustrating, or what has been your trick of being someone who actually does deliver on that level, to deal with people who have no idea what that kind of commitment means?
I've used it as it is absolutely frustrating. I feel you there. Like, I said I'm going to do this, I did it. You said you're going to do this, what happened? Kind of thing, right? It's incredibly frustrating. And I've learned, but not accepted, that's how preponderance of folks are, unfortunately. I don't know if it's cultural, generational, whatever, right? But I've learned to just accept that that's how a lot of people are. What can I do to change that? I can't change them. Well, what I can do is just live by my word. So at least be an example. And hopefully here and there, some folks kind of pick up on that. Oh, wow. Like, here's his word. That's really cool. He said he's going to do this. He did this. I should do the same.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was so interested in like how you became gritty, because, these days there's not a lot of really gritty, street fighting kind of people who just get stuff done, right? Like, I feel like everyone's very, this is going to sound bad and probably I'll get a lot of comments in the post on this, but there's a lot of like wishy-washy people out there who just don't get anything done.
Yeah. Or have a lot of ideas and opinions. We're a little action.
We are living in the generation of ideas and feelings. Yes, but there's a level to this about just being, again, comfortable with being uncomfortable, or being home with that level of discomfort, and just being able to grind it out. And really, like, not enough people that I at least have surrounded myself with in the last few years really carry that as being like a badge of honor.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be very frustrating.
Yeah. But so my grittiness, I think, definitely came from my father's side, because he was an athlete, and he was actually an Olympian back in the day. So he played for Team Canada, and he was always like super gritty, super focused, super tough, but instilled a level of discipline in me and my brother too. I think that just taught us, like, if you start something, you absolutely have to finish it. And then of course we got into sports at an early age, team sports, which is kind of a great caveat for practicing a lot of those skills and techniques that you have to use in the real world as well. But that's without any doubt, like, that's kind of where that grittiness came from in me, like, where it's like, okay, we're going to climb a mountain. I said I'm going to climb a mountain. We're climbing the mountain, and dedicating every morsel of your soul to achieving that goal. And I'm kind of it's amazed that you just kind of figured that out on your own as you were going, without any real role model.
I mean, I'm sure in some ways my mother and father instilled a right mix of traits that helped provide a foundation for that realization.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say, neither of them were, avid runners or, climb mountains or anything of that sort, right? But I'm sure it's probably a combination.
You didn't have like a running role model, or you didn't have someone, who was doing something inspiring that you kind of latched onto, or you didn't have a coach that really inspired you when you were a kid, who taught you, like, you got to be different. You got to do this. You got to say you're going to do something. You got to finish that job. Like, you just started. It's mesmerizing that you somehow figured this whole thing out by yourself. about just
Yeah.
one footed in front of the other and just go.
Yeah. It's it probably comes across like I figured it out myself, and it feels like I did in a way, but I think that discounts like the little nuggets of information and role model examples that probably in aggregate help give me that foundation to figure it out myself. I can't pinpoint to a single coach or parent or the guardian or family member that did anything specific, but I'd like to think that they all contributed to it.
Okay. Yeah. And then subconsciously it all just kind of soaked. You soaked it all up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think your kids are going to get from your running past? I mean, like, you're bringing new people into the world, and you have an incredible kind of background and you have a passion for this running. I mean, like, is this something that you want to see them get into, or are you kind of conscious about maybe pushing them too quickly into doing something or running? I mean, 5, yeah, maybe by the time they're like 7, 8, 9, maybe they're kind of going on small runs with you or something like that. Is that something you envision, like passing this passion down to the next generation?
I hope so, but not in a pushy way, right? Because I know for kids that could be kind of a turnoff if it's like pushed and pushed and pushed on them. Fast forward 20 years, they're going to like despise running, right?
And despise you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I think if I lead by example, right, and give them the tools, especially like mentally, like, dude, you guys could do anything you want, right? You want to run 100 miles, you could do it.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of instilled that knowledge in them so that they understand that they could be as gritty as they want.
Yeah. I think that's something a lot of kids don't grow up with like anymore, maybe, is that idea, like, just go out and try it. And if you achieve it, then, you set yourself on a path where now that if you try anything, you can actually get something done.
Right.
That kind of confidence is like completely lacking.
Yeah. And knowing that failure is okay. It is okay. Yeah. You'll try and you'll fail. That is okay. That's part of the process.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like, you have permission to make mistakes. You have permission to fail, but you just absolutely have no permission, like, not to try.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to chat about? This has been fascinating.
Yeah. I'd like to know the next time you have an expedition plan. I'm game. Let me know.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely going to do, so I don't run. So first off, but I definitely am going to do the north to south Death Valley hike, 160 miles, about 240 kilometers. I'm going to do that, I hope, in April. We were going to do it in December, but there wasn't enough daylight hours. So we were quite conscious of that, because obviously Death Valley is a trick. You don't want to go in the dead of winter because it's too cold, but also too, the sun doesn't rise till 8 and then it sets around 4:35. So you don't have enough daylight to really get it done, and then you're running in a headlamp, which is kind of tough, or you're finding camp in a headlight, which is always difficult. So we're going to push it, I think, till April, where we're going to have like much longer daylight hours. I think the sun goes down around 7 p.m. in April in Death Valley. So we're going to try to extend it, and that way we can kind of like wake up at 5, get out in the dark, push through and make sure we do, maybe 20 miles a day or something like that. Try to do a full day out of it. But I'm really excited to kind of explore Death Valley at a gentle pace, but just to kind of take in all of the magic.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be amazing. Right.
Yeah. But I'd love to stay in touch on that. And and then of course, in August, I'm looking at going to Bhutan. So Bhutan's amazing, kind of landlocked in between India and China and Nepal. And it's they have this amazing trek there called the Snowman Trek, which is a 28-day trek, and it takes you through some of the highest mountains in the world. And all of those peaks are kind of like unclimbed peaks, because the people of Bhutan are Buddhist. And in Buddhism, you're not supposed to summit mountains, because the mountain summits are for the deities, for the gods. So
didn't know that.
Yeah. So what you do is you do this kind of trek where you kind of go through the base camps and you go through the high passes on the shoulders of the highest mountains, and it takes you over 8 or 9 5,000 meter peaks, which in 5,000 meters is about 17 or 18,000 feet. So you do 9 big passes like that, which I think is quite intense. And then of course it snows in the summer and you've got crazy weather, but August is the month to do it. That's where you have the best chance.
Sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'll definitely let you know. And you can get out and run ahead if you want and meet us at the next camp. But no, it'd be amazing. It'd be amazing to get out on the trail and and yeah, just spend time with like-minded people who love being outside.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Epic, man. Well, look, I wish you the best of luck on your running and raising the kids and dealing with work and just managing everything that life throws at us, right? It's endless.
Which is all manageable.
It's just all manageable, but only after you've proven to yourself that you can run an ultra marathon. Right. Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for swinging by, and I appreciate the chat.
Likewise.
All right. Cheers.